Hey everyone, welcome back to the video series. We are going to dive into the first topic, which is going to be the importance of understanding yourself and how to do it. It sounds really simple, but I think there's a lot of layers behind it that we kind of don't really acknowledge, nor do we actually actively try to understand ourselves as people. Um, so, in terms of this discussion, it's going to go in a bunch of different branches, whether that is kind of similar things that all of us are searching for, which plays a really big part of why we make the decisions we do, or the types of attitudes and behaviors that we are accustomed to implementing on our day-to-day basis in our life. Um, I know these topics are extremely heavy, and it's just again, this whole thing, I do definitely regret not being able to take the opportunity after King of the Nerds to tell furthermore of my story or furthermore of who I am, because I know a lot of you reached out to me. Now, in terms of how it's been for maybe the last 6 years, I have not had the presence in the community as much as I do when I was just entering into the gaming community and into reality TV and all that kind of stuff. So I know my community now is extremely tiny. I know I don't have the biggest following, but I do know I do have you guys that do follow my social media, whether that's Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. I know that a lot of you have reached out to me in the past, or even more so lately, telling me that I am someone that you admire, that I am someone that you've always kind of looked up to or can relate to. This is particularly for those people, and even to narrow it down a little bit more, it's for the people that are in a transition in their life, or are trying to overcome something that's going on right now, that is causing them to not feel the greatest about themselves, or uh, not really confident with who they are, or even not knowing where to go in your next step in your life. So that's why I'm kind of just here to tell you my experiences and self reflection, uh, because I have been alone with my thoughts. And the one thing I have definitely learned, um, in the times of when I am not comfortable in my life, that it is a lot tougher on my mental state, because I am an overthinker. I am a people pleaser, and I'm also very attached to things that I care and I love about, and it affects me immensely to have a lot of fears in my life of losing that type of stuff. So um, there are going to be times that I'm going to talk about in my self reflection what I learned about myself. I'm going to also tell you the positives. We're going to try and keep this as positive as we can in this discussion, of being able to do this kind of stuff, because it is going to be a lot tougher outside of when things are no longer on a comfortable path for you. So, one thing that we all generally don't like to do is be outside of our comfort zone. And when we're within our comfort zone, it is one of those things that we just live life moment by moment, and there's nothing wrong with that. Uh, the thing is, if we don't mentally prepare ourselves and emotionally prepare ourselves for what's to come in the future, because it is going to get really difficult at times, and depending on what you've been through, or depending how you've grown up, with certain behaviors and certain attitudes that you've always carried within yourself, that is going to affect when bigger things are thrown at you. I know I come across as a very strong individual. To an extent, I know I am. But when I'm feeling very weak, I feel very, very weak. A lot of right now, the audience that I'm trying to reach out to is generally I see that I'm reaching out to most people that are within this gaming community. Whether you're a fan of games or a fan of King of the Nerds or anything like that. Our social environment is very different from, let's say, if we were moved outside of the online aspect. This is all really different because we, as in my age or my generation, and then the corresponding ones after us, they are now adjusting to a life of social media and things being thrown at them in a very different way than it was back in the day when we didn't have access to internet like this, and we didn't have Twitter, and we didn't have Facebook, and all this stuff. So, understanding yourself is going to prepare yourself for when you are put under pressure, when you go through difficult times, and even allow you to be a little bit more empathetic towards other people. Because we all generally, okay, so as all of us as a whole, we have basic human needs like a sense of belonging or to feel connection to other people, to feel some sort of higher sense of self worth. Because one of the things about us as people is that uh, pride and ego is one of the things that we tend to want to protect and we want to hold on to because that is what drives us to make sure that we're stable or we have some sort of value. If you take into account that we all generally want the same things, which we do, we want to feel important, we want to feel valued, we want to have these deep connections with people and great stable friendships, and we also want to fulfill our lives with whatever it is that we need to, whether that's a career. A lot of how you interact with people and your friendships and your attitudes is very much so based on the way you grew up, probably, and your surrounding support system that you have. So, particularly with me, so I'm gonna dive into this really intensely when it comes to analysis of me trying to figure out who I am. The past I want to say 4 months now, I've been very much so alone with my thoughts, and I have never, because I'm in a really difficult time of my life. I'm the overthinker, right? I tend to let my emotions dictate my feelings, my thoughts, my behavior, my attitude. And because I'm stuck with that for a very long time, I've had a lot of time to understand why I make the mistakes I do, why I feel so bad about it, um, why I don't, in the moment, ever build enough strength to make better choices. So with me growing up, so my mother had a really tough time with my biological father. He basically abandoned her. A short story. Mom basically took her 2 kids, moved away, and worked 3 jobs. And so my sister took care of me. As far as when it comes to when I look back at the past, and I try to figure out through the early stages of being a kid and then going through my years in elementary school and then high school and then building that past that, I see where I am shaped and why I am ignorant to certain things or why I don't confront those things, because the hardest things that we can do is critique ourselves, because it's so much easier to critique other people and blame other people and think, the worst of them. And that was my problem, is that I always put the blame on other people as opposed to not put the blame on other people, but if I was abandoned, I tend to put the blame on other people. And then in retrospect, I end up blaming myself, and I carry a lot of guilt, and then my self-worth just starts to deplete. I start to question, am I worth it? Am I boring? My perception of myself is very skewed at times. When I was growing up, I didn't really have social skills, so I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't really have the courage to be able to put myself in very uncomfortable situations. I always did my best to try and avoid it. In elementary school, for recess, I would lock myself up in the classroom because I felt like I didn't relate to the kids, or I felt I didn't know how to socialize with them. And growing up, I had a lot of individuals that I emotionally depended on. So with me, because of that attachment, so there's three different attachments that you can go and have within your lifetime. So you're either secure attachment, uh, anxious attachment, which is me, and avoidant attachment. Because I'm an anxious attachment, I have a lot of fear of losing the person that I'm attached to, or losing a friendship. So I have a big, huge problem with my dependency on another person to make me feel, again, the basic human need of feeling important, or feeling loved, or feeling a certain connection. So growing up, I actually had a lot of girlfriends, and I was not really good at group friendships. I was more so better at individual friendships. So I always had one person that I spent a lot of time with, invested a lot of time with. When I look back, I lost a lot of friends in my life, and that's not to take account of it being like we fought or anything like that, or we had a big huge like argument and that's what made us fall out. They would just unexpectedly, in my mind, just disappear out of nowhere, and I never understood why. And so when I look back at that, I go, okay, so I definitely had an anxious attachment to these people, and when they left, I labeled that feeling of abandonment. I labeled it as is it because I'm not an entertaining friend? Is it because I'm boring? Is it because I am socially awkward? What is it? And so those are the things that started to add up in my mind, and obviously those kind of molded into certain particular insecurities that I ended up having. So carry that on to high school, where I'm jumping from friend to friend, trying to find like really good connections and relationships with people. And same thing, I didn't have much social skills. I was still very shy and not aware of myself as what other people perceive me, because I have a lot of reliability, or I had a lot of reliability on how people perceive me, and even to this day I still struggle with it, because it is very much so easier to remember someone that is super inspiring and amazing and like great, but it's very easy to always remember the negative parts. If you hear or see something negative in their behavior or their thought process, understanding yourself, you have to know what it is about yourself that is stopping you from wanting to be a better version of you. Most of you don't know this. Maybe some of you know this. I have been in a relationship since I was 16 years old. Okay, I'm 28. I have jumped from relationship to relationship to relationship, and I definitely have a pattern, and it is because of the way I grew up. It is because of my fear of abandonment and not understanding myself as a person that I put a lot of value into how people perceive me, mostly not to the public, but more so to people that I know I respect their opinions from. Those are the types of things that made me behave or have a certain attitude. Obviously, I'm not like a consistent person. Like, it changes because of my social environment. So when I started going onto social media, a lot of things that you see on social media is, if you have a very strong opinionated uh, kind of aura to you on social media, people really respect that. It stands for confidence. It stands for power. It stands for even respect, because people admire those that have a strong opinion, and if a person can relate to that opinion or agrees with that opinion, then it becomes even stronger. So with me in particular, when I started, I know it's kind of getting a little bit deep here, but when I started getting into the community, I noticed that opinionated was very looked as a great thing. So I became very opinionated within my relationships, and this goes for my romantic relationships, because I put a lot of expectations I don't like the way I put pressure on my partners to fulfill certain expectations that I believe in like love or attention or um, being able to sacrifice, because relationships are really tricky. If anything, it's probably the most trickiest thing that you can ever master in terms of like your life. um, but they are extremely important to building who you are as a person. And with me, I turned from this quiet person to very argumentative, um, very opinionated, and a lot of it is your body and your mind working together. So if you have a certain feeling, like you get irritated, something simple, so let's say your partner totally forgot that it was a date day or something like that, and they made other plans or something like that. I don't know. You in return feel a little bit undervalued, and you get upset because they threaten your pride and your ego about who you are and feeling secure. And when you have anything threatening your security, different types of emotions starts to arise. And that's where you need to start understanding yourself. Next time you get angry at something, rather than just saying, I'm angry because he's being a bitch, something small like that, think of why you're getting angry. So rather than just simplifying it into one particular thing, you're probably getting upset because it threatens something else inside of you. Whether that's you feel like you don't deserve the respect, feel like you've given so much and they're just not returning it in the relationship, whatever it is. Then you have to attack your how to communicate that with yourself and potentially with your partner if you are still within that fight. So understanding yourself, again, extremely important to do. I've done enough of it. I have a lot of mistakes that I make, and so for me in particular, as you can see, I develop emotional dependency on a lot of people. With me, it's so different. For me, I realize like the reason why I am confused about sometimes about the way I look, or I need certain validation to be called pretty or like beautiful, is because I have a very skewed perception of attractiveness to other people. Because what I find attractive in other people is their emotional stability, or if they're simple things, like if you want to go with like they're funny, they're cute, like in terms of like the way they talk. Like that's how it is. And the beginning of the relationship, it's always nice to like see that kind of like stuff. And when it gets later down in a relationship, that's when it starts to get tested, and that's where understanding yourself comes to play. Because if you don't understand yourself, then you are not going to be able to love yourself. It is different from, say, loving yourself in I love myself because I've accomplished this, or I know I'm a good person, or I've got this planned, I've got a great partner, all this kind of stuff. So you start pulling in from different directions of all the things that you feel make you that person you are. But we all have insecurities. We all have fears. We all have things we love. We all have things we cherish. We all want to feel connection and a sense of belonging. And we are all not perfect in the way we handle it, especially when our emotions come into play. Because do you remember the time that you got angry and pissed and you said some really hurtful things? Or do you remember the time that you were so sad you contemplating killing yourself? If you don't research enough of why it happens, like for example depression, anxiety, that is your body and your mind, and it's really hard. I know what it's like. I've rocked back and forth with my thoughts. This is gonna get a little personal, but I had a really bad breakdown recently, and if it weren't for my friends, Chris and Haley, to be there to pick up the phone, I don't know what would have happened. They had never heard me like that. They didn't know. They knew I was in pain, but they didn't know I was in that much pain. And that's when depression or anxiety, your fears, and everything that you feel mentally and physically, they start to perpetuate each other. and they lock into such an overwhelming feeling that you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. And this is why you need to prepare yourself, really understand why you think the way you do, you behave the way you do, you have a certain attitude. And that is the type of stuff that I have had to reflect on. All of, again, it's easy to be a critic to other people, but it is not easy to critique yourself because you're having to pull everything that you love about yourself, and you're also having to remember that you are not perfect, and this image that you build to yourself or even to social media is not always grand. We all have stuff that we go through. When you understand your thought processes, I think that's when you can start to see things in a very different way. I'm still struggling to kind of do that right now. I go back and forth, and it is solely because I know I'm in pain. I understand myself that in the morning, as soon as I wake up, I have anxiety. So I lay in bed for about 30 minutes. I talk through my thoughts, ask those questions that I don't like to ask, because right now I'm stuck in a cycle where I ask questions that I will never have the answer to. And I constantly ask them, and I ask them, and I start to worry, and I start to worry, and I start to get paranoid, and then I think that I'm never going to get over this pain. And that has been the entire months that I've been dealing with what I am right now. I've been able to finally have days that I'm calmer and I'm a lot more rational. And so that's when I take advantage of trying to understand me as a person and what I want to become and who I am in the now. I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, but you are human. You will make mistakes. You will realize why you made those mistakes. If you feel guilty about it, if you let it tear you down, which is exactly what I always do, and exactly why I feel the pain I do. Because as much as I have to take responsibility for a lot of things that I am not happy about, and I wish I could go back and turn around and release as if it never happened, you play a part in the social environment. You play a part with your interactions with other people. They also play a part in how they affect you. And your emotions and your insecurities will dictate a lot of how you treat other people and how you treat yourself. So with me, I have to confront everything I don't like. I'm emotionally dependent. I'd rather be emotionally independent. Um, and there's nothing, I'm telling you right now, it's amazing to have a great support system because they offer you advice through their own experiences and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you're living in your shoes and you're the one that's going to be uh, doing whatever it is you do throughout the day. And I know, like, we all want to just live life comfortably, laugh at memes, be on social media, interact with our friends, go to work, have a good time, go to the bar, all that kind of stuff. Because it's great. I genuinely, when I'm gonna be in a better place, love that type of stuff. I love when life is really easy. I love it when it's on course in my eyes. And the moment it's not in course, that's when I was not mentally prepared, expecting what my weaknesses were going to do to dictate how I feel mentally, physically, and the decisions I end up making further on. I encourage, if you're going through a really tough time right now, for people that even, it's really hard for people that are extremely depressed to have a mentality, but the more you understand your depression and the chemical imbalances in your head, why anxiety happens, and what makes it get worse. And so you have to find coping tools and outlets to relieve that as soon as possible before it does more damage to yourself. So for example, if you have anxiety, meditate or breathe or immediately call someone when you're depressed and you're starting to get into your thoughts. Just remember to always counter it with the best positive thought that you can, because when you're depressed, you're going to circulate yourself in low self-worth, and you're going to question, are you worth it? And it is not until the calmer moments when you're out of your depression for a bit and you're out and about and you're in a better mood is when you really have to take advantage of that and appreciate the things that's happening in front of you. And remember to always do your best effort to showcase love to other people and yourself. Because we're all going through a lot of shit in our lives and we're all messed up in our own certain ways. Even if we feel like we're, on a good path or really worth it and we're super positive on that kind of stuff. We have both, right? We have both great things about ourselves. We both have negative things about ourselves, and it is not until you admit some of the negative things and you say, hey, like, this is me. I'm emotionally dependent. I have a fear of abandonment. Get really negative when I am in my depression, or I get really negative when I feel like I become jealous, or I compare myself to other people, or I want to criticize someone else to relieve the negativity off of me. Like, those are the types of things that I think all of us generally like to do, or not like to do, but we generally do. We don't actively try and switch the mentality towards it. So again, understanding yourself is very important. This video is way too long. I am going to end it here. Thanks for listening. For those, if you're trying to get out of the bubble of thinking really negatively, I know it's not easy at all. I recommend trying to go online and research, what it is as humans that we always crave and what we need, and then kind of apply it to your life from what you knew back then to up until right now in this moment. See why you behave the way you do. For example, social media and like how you use it and how you interact with it, even like your social interactions and your friendships. When you start to look into those deeper and you look at yourself from a third person perspective, but you look at yourself within it and you see how you treat other people or why you act the way you do, you will, with time, be able to prepare yourself for the things that might come at you that you don't expect it to. Other than that, I am going to end it here, and I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. If you have any comments, feel free to comment below. And again, if you have an entry that you want to submit to the blog, feel free to. The contact is on the website. You'll see from earlier stuff before the video series, people sharing their stories about depression or PTSD. If you want to go ahead and do that, submission is located on the website. Other than that, guys, take care of yourself, and I will be back with the next video. Okay, bye.